Hi, it's Thursday, January 7th, 2016. It's 11:15 p.m. London time. And yeah, it's been a very interesting first few days for the stock market and the markets in general for the year of 2016. I mean, the Dow Jones today dropped, 392 points. The Chinese stock market has dropped 7% twice this year already, even though the Chinese central bank has injected about $20 billion into the market. Yeah, looking back at the last 3 or 4 years, you'd want to like relax and say, oh, this is just a correction, and I think there's a lot of complacency still. But this feels worse than that. This feels bad. I think, people are eventually gonna, realize, oh, boy, this is not good. It's a bit like Wile Coyote jumping over the cliff and being in air for a few seconds and then realizing it's a precipice and then just collapsing and splatting himself. Going back to my previous videos, one thing I'd like to talk about, of course, you probably noticed that I'm into, the precious metals. And gold has very clearly broken through my breakout point, which was a midpoint of a double bottom, even though the double bottom extended quite a bit and became more like a head and shoulder. But we've broken through that $1,089 level, and we're now, as I speak, at 1,109. So the high has been 1,111, today. So, and my objective for the break of that double bottom, if I'm not mistaken, was 1,131. So we're only $20 away from that objective. Yeah, and I know gold the last four years, 4.5 years, it's been, dipping down, lower lows, lower highs, and all the time it's been like capped, very frustrating, but it feels a little different right now. And one aspect of precious metals that's improved in the last 12 hours or so is silver. In the last few days, even though gold has been breaking out, silver had been stuck around $14 and even below $14. But this afternoon, Eastern Standard Time, American time, silver finally broke through $14 and it went as high as $14.40. We're now around $14.30. So I think the next level that's really important is going to be 1440, and if we can break through that, it's going to help gold go up as well. So, I could be, could be wrong, and precious metals followers or gold bugs, whatever you want to call them, been wrong for the last 4 years. But who knows? This could be finally the end of the correction, and it feels a little bit like it. The other asset I want to point to is Bitcoin. We're at 455, which is pretty good. I mean, about a day ago, 24 hours, we dropped below to 428, which was key support, and it's jumped quite well right now at 455. We're supposed to get towards 650, according to the Webbot, by sometime in the end of the January, beginning of February. So, I don't think it's impossible for us to get there. The Webbot was predicting 408 when Bitcoin was around 220 early in 2015, and we got to 408. So I think 650 is a realistic proposition. What else are we're seeing here? According to Zero Hedge, this is the Dow's worst start to the year ever. So they're looking back to like 1900, and they don't say exactly. I guess they must mean the first 4 trading days of the year, But we're, I'll put a link to that article, but it's the worst start ever. Yeah, I mean, I think the worst ever before that was in 1901. So, we're almost down 6% for 2016. The other thing I wanted to note is the British pound. And you might ask, why the British pound? The British Empire, collapsed after World War II, the Suez crisis and everything. The pound is not the reserve currency. But, there are a lot of people that think, I think Martin Armstrong talks about this, that the pound moves before the dollar. And the pound, since last year, since the before the elections in the UK, the pound topped around 170 to the dollar, and we're now, believe it or not, at 146. And I think the low earlier today was 145.30. So that's a big move from 170 to 146 to the dollar. It's dropped a lot. People keep going on about how the euro is really weak, but don't forget the pound was at above 2 to the dollar before the 2008 crisis, and we're now at 145. So the pound's kind of been devalued a lot. I saw a headline or an article in the Telegraph by Mr. Evans Pritchard Ambrose, and he was like having a go at China. Oh, they're gonna have to devalue the Chinese, But what about the British? Haven't they devalued? From above 170, we're now to 145. And the Chinese, the devaluation in China is like from 650 to 670, in dollar terms. So it seems to be a lot of propaganda. But about the pound, there are some people who think that the pound is a good indicator for financial crisis. And if you look at the pound chart, I'm going to download some. I'll put some charts of the pound. But in 2007, 2008, time frame, the pound dropped from above 2. I think the high was 2.11. 1 pound would buy $2.11, and then the pound started dumping, and we got to around 140 and even below it, in the 2008, 2009 crisis, and 170 last year was the high since then, and now we're back to 145. And could it be a precursor to a crisis? It certainly looks like it. And you might ask, why are you looking at the pound in the financial global crisis? Well, because don't forget, London is, even though some New Yorkers or Americans might find this offensive, but I think London is the financial center of the world, not New York. We're told New York is, and it might be, I don't know, but there are more American banks in London than there are American banks in New York. And there's a lot of other foreign banks in London, and London is is where, you know, all the derivatives were invented and traded. New York got a bit of the derivatives after, you know, the Clinton administration, you know, did away with Glass-Steagall. So New York banks could start, you know, in New York, in the US, could start trading derivatives. But before that, this is where, you know, London, the city of London, is where the derivatives took off. And it's still the center of the derivatives market, London. So I think that's why, you know, if the pound is not doing well, the fiat money system's not doing well. And I would keep an eye on the pound. Right now, the pound is rebounded above 146 as against the dollar. But we did drop below that level today. And the other cross I look at is the GBP JPY, the pound against the yen, and that looks horrible. So a lot of people think, you know, whatever the pound does, the dollar will follow. So yeah, and the dollar will follow. It can only follow against gold because the dollar is the reserve currency still, and gold is the base of all fiat currencies, like it or not. The other interesting thing that I noticed today, there's an article in Zero Hedge about Saudi Aramco, which is the Saudi oil company, and it looks like the Saudis want to do an IPO, or basically sell Saudi Aramco, which is their crown jewels. You know, oil right now is around $34. You know, boy, I mean, you know, that's bad. And Saudi Arabia is in trouble. So they're selling their crown jewel when they're talking about doing an IPO for Saudi Aramco. So that's a really bad sign. What else are we seeing today? Yeah, currency-wise, you know, I've seen the euro has rebounded really well against the dollar. We're now almost back to 110. So the dollar index it's kind of topped again. We're now at 98.30. So yeah, and gold's done well. So that's the anti-dollar. So yeah, it's I'd have to say the start of the year has been perfect for you know, people who believe in sound money and what else, rationality, you know, rational markets. You know, things are correcting, you know. And can central banks save the system? I don't think so. Markets are bigger than central banks. And I've noticed as well that George Soros, who made a lot of money back in '92 when the British pound collapsed, is saying that we're in the beginning of world financial crisis. And he's also noticed that the currencies are all over the place. And volatile currencies are not good. So, you know, maybe I'm jumping, maybe I'm being too premature, but it doesn't look good. You know, I've been in the markets, I've worked in the market for years. This doesn't look good. So let's see what happens. I guess we've got non-farm payrolls tomorrow. We'll see if that will make any difference. Take care. Have a good evening. Bye.